This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Should just run the standard intro.
Good morning, everybody. We are here for the budget workshop for IT and Board of Ed. We are going to start with IT.
Good morning. I'm Alex Linos, the IT manager for the town, joined by Antonio Scarano, my systems administrator. We're just going to be going over our budget for 2026-27. We continue to maintain and secure the systems that support every town operation. This coming year's budget focuses on improving reliability, strengthening cybersecurity, and modernizing the town's network infrastructure. Quickly under personnel, our full-time line changes for contractual obligations. I'm also requesting funding of $19,760 for a part-time position. The IT department currently operates with 2 full-time staff responsible for all departments across town. And when I say town, I really want to stress that we don't just support town offices. We support the police department, fire department, senior center, this library, field operations, and even the volunteer firehouses. This specialized technology in police cruisers, for example. We install kiosks at the senior center, even down to the public Wi-Fi provided in town buildings. So on average, we handle around 150 support requests each week. That's not including larger projects or modernization efforts that are underway in multiple departments. And that number of software, web services, and hosted systems continues to grow. I wanted to just quickly give the Board of Finance an idea. Earlier in these workshops, Rich spoke to the costs associated with a new employee, and those are benefits. But on top of those benefits, we have security costs associated with onboarding a new employee, and those are anywhere from, on the low side, $2,000, on the high side, $7,000. And that includes not just their Microsoft 365 subscription, but we're talking about security services that have to be layered on top of that, including archiving software for their email, which handles FOI requests. So these things are adding up and in turn driving our recurring subscriptions higher, especially since Diane can attest to this. Everything has gone to a subscription model in our space. So now we're adding a seat, a license, so on and so forth. So I don't want to get into the weeds with specifics, but suffice it to say, we've done a lot of cybersecurity work for the town that could have cost us upwards of $30,000 had we needed to engage outside forensics. We've had a lot of near misses, and we work hard to make sure that this town is not in the front page of the newspaper. In regards to all these things, that's why we're asking for some part-time help, just to alleviate some of that day-to-day that we're dealing with.
How many positions is that?
Just
One.
one position. Yeah. So as far as our maintenance contract line, that stays kind of flat for this budget. We've increased the hardware software line to give us some room there because we have had some overages in that line. Everything else is pretty much flat across the board. And the only change, actually there's no change because it's in our 5-year plan, is our capital improvement, which is a $100,000 investment to expand the town's network switching infrastructure. Specifically in certain buildings, including this one, we need to upgrade the infrastructure in the switch room to help give a better network performance throughout the library, and includes security and visibility into network activity. And that's kind of what we're looking at standardizing across the board in the town. So in summary, before I take some questions, this budget balances everyday operational needs with strategic improvements. The part-time position addresses increasing support demands, and the network modernization project strengthens the town's core technology infrastructure. Together, these steps position the town to operate more securely and efficiently in the years ahead.
Anybody have any questions? I have a question.
Sure.
So with all the hacks and everything, what would you say, like, in 6 months or a year, how many could you gauge how many times somebody has tried to?
It's daily.
It's probably daily.
It's daily. We're in the middle of a project to migrate the library's email infrastructure, because they had been previously using Lion, and it had some security vulnerabilities recently. So we're working on moving them into our 365 environment. Just by adding one person's email address, we got attacked almost instantaneously with a password request.
Somebody's watching.
Yeah. And as soon as that account was added, we're getting these automated attacks that are going out every day, just spraying email addresses against different services to see if they get a hit.
Alex, just one question.
Sure.
Under hardware, software, and labor,
Yep.
your estimated expenditures for 25, 26, 126.9,
Yes.
and the increase is to 137.
Yes.
Just explain that.
Sure. I mean, a lot of that is being driven by the increases in hardware costs. Specifically, what we're seeing is, I don't know if you've been in the market for a computer lately, but if you're not, you may not see it. But what's going on is with the AI boom that we're having right now is driving memory prices through the roof. And any new computer purchase, we've gone up a couple $100 just to be a standard computer. So we've had to make some adjustments there and think creatively when we're purchasing hardware. This just accounts for that overage, and as well as some of the software products that we purchase under there have also likewise gone up in cost.
Okay, thank you.
And do you force people to do updates? Or do
yeah.
they like where I am, I get a notification.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get you have to pick your time, and then you have
That's
no
nice
choice.
of them to give you. We
Well,
let everybody delay it a little bit, and then it'll just do it at close of business day. It'll just decide to do the updates.
Well,
So,
sometimes I'm working and I'm like, there's an update and I can't stop it. But other times they will pick your time, which I usually pick when I'm not working. Okay.
we try and make it convenient and around business hours, but we also have some of the computers at the police department that are on a different time schedule, so we can hit those late at night.
Okay.
Alex, I just have one question about
Sure.
your budget, and then one question about the capital.
Yep.
The line that's increasing by 8% says hardware, software, labor.
Yeah.
In our reports, it says consultant software. Are these the same thing?
It
And
is
there a
the same
consultant?
line. I in the past, it has been named 3 or 4 different things.
I figured,
so
right.
It's gotten confusing over the years.
Right.
I think it was consultant software, and now it's morphed into hardware, software, labor, and that labor does kind of cover outside consultants if we're working with them on a project, or even cybersecurity consulting. We'll use that line for hours or purchasing block hours.
So the increase includes the potential for using outside consultants?
Yes.
It does, okay. And is that something that tends to be front-end loaded, or it's spent throughout the year?
Almost all of our budget is front-end loaded at this point.
Okay.
it's actually a savings for the town if we purchase our Microsoft 365 licenses at the start of our fiscal year. It saves anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 rather than going month to month with them. We sometimes do, again, if an employee comes on in the middle of the year and we have to onboard them, we do have to add those licenses on, but then we can get that prorated and on our renewal, we pay that larger sum all at once, but that actually is a savings overall.
Right, because in our report, again, we only have the most recent
All
one. You've spent about 6,000,
Yep.
but you have a pretty sizable encumbrance. So is that just kind of a safety valve, or you
Encumbrances
know,
would be a purchase order that's
It's
outstanding.
probably an
you know for
outstanding
certain that it's
purchase
something
order.
that will be spent for
It
sure?
will be spent.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's
that's
nothing-
very helpful. And then in
I
terms
wish
of
there
the
was- I wish there was breathing room. There isn't.
again, I never know with something that includes a consultant
Yeah.
whether you're just kind of reserving that just in case or it's actually a purchase order. And then in terms of the capital request, we have for 3 years 65,000, 85,000, and now you're requesting 100,000.
Yeah.
Is that all for the same switches?
No, they're different
They're different
projects
things.
throughout
Okay.
town.
Okay.
We invested a little bit in our server infrastructure in the previous year and our backup systems.
Mhm.
We've actually been able to recoup some of those things via grant.
Any other questions from the members?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, North Haven Board of Finance members. Today we will be presenting the Board of Education budget for the 26-27 school year. Joining me to present this morning is Chairperson Ron Vaprick, Vice Chair Randy Peterson, Board Secretary Michelle Guglielmo, Board Member Amanda Gabriel, Chief Operating Officer Christian Strickland, and Finance Manager Howard Warlow. Provided through this budget are resources to provide instruction to 3,070 students, give or take. Mental health, nutrition, and medical care to allow students to access instruction. Specialized services required for all students to achieve their potential. Diverse opportunities for students to engage in activities outside of their curricular pursuits. And safe and reliable transportation to and from school. The following couple of slides will highlight the district's return on the town of North Haven's investment. For reference, the average Dirk D per pupil expenditure is $22,782. North Haven's PPE is currently $20,381, which ranks us 20th of 24 districts within our DIRT. Please note, North Haven has dropped from 15th to 20th over the past 2 years. As I say each year, North Haven spends less than most, but our return is exceptional. This year, Green Acres Elementary School was recognized as a Blue Ribbon School. This recognition is similar to winning an Oscar or Super Bowl in the world of education. However, I believe it's more exceptional than these awards because Green Acres needed to demonstrate excellence for many years, probably a better part of a decade, to be awarded this status.
So just to give a little bit of a background about this award, this used to be a national award, but in August of 2025, it was discontinued as a national recognition. However, Connecticut decided to continue, and Green Acres was one of 4 schools in the state of Connecticut that was recognized as a Blue Ribbon School. So as Patrick just stated, this is something that is built upon over years. It's not a one and done thing. It's something that is the culmination of dedicated educators, instructional coaches, para-educators, the staff throughout the school, parents, students, administrators for years on end, and all of their contributions. So I would like to just reiterate that when you choose to fund this budget, what you'll be doing is protecting a proven educational system that will continue to support our schools and that will thrive among Connecticut's best.
The district continues to excel on state standardized assessments. We are ranked in the top 5 of 24 D districts in math, English, and science.
So schools of distinction, you have to meet certain criteria in order to be recognized for a school of distinction, as a school of distinction. So Green Acres Elementary was recognized as a high growth school in ELA for all students. Montouise was recognized for high growth for all students in math. And Ridge Road was recognized for high growth for all students in ELA, as well as high growth for high needs students in ELA. And when I say high needs, that encompasses students with disabilities, students that are English language learners, and students that are eligible for free or reduced price meals. And basically what happens is there's this list of 12 indicators. Not all are applicable to the elementary level. I think it's 8 or 9 that apply to the elementary schools. But you get points for each of those indicators, and the top 10% of schools that get those points are acknowledged as a school of distinction. I think it's really important that we recognize that there are over 1,500 public schools in the state of Connecticut. Only 141 schools in the state of Connecticut were recognized as a school of distinction, and 4 of them are from North Haven. So we are doing the right thing in North Haven. It's working for our students, it's working for our community, and what we're doing is working for our future. So we need to support public education and fund this budget.
Now we will be moving on to the Board of Education's budget for the 26-27 school year. This slide demonstrates the 4 areas that drive the board's budget increase for the 26-27 school year. These 4 areas total just about $7 million additional dollars to the budget, with medical and dental insurance carrying the bulk of the increase at just over $4.5 million. This is followed by contractual salary increases totaling $1.7 million and 5 new special education position salaries totaling $350,000. To expand on the new special education positions, the district is in need of 3 special education teachers for 3 of our specialized programs. An additional speech and language pathologist and occupational therapist are also included. These positions are necessary for various reasons. To remain compliant with the students' individualized education plans, or IEPs, to ensure that necessary staff is in place in order to keep students safe and meet the goals and objectives of their IEPs, and to ensure that caseloads for our special education and support staff members are manageable so that they can meet the needs of our students and remain compliant with their IEPs. Additionally, 2 of these positions present a cost savings to the district, which will be further explained on the next 2 slides. The district currently invests $5.6 million in 8 different special education programs. Without these programs, the district would be spending approximately $21 million to educate students within these out-of-district programs. This is an annual savings of $15.5 million. With this being said, these programs continue to grow, and our students require additional and necessary services to meet their potential. This is why the board and district continues to support these exemplary programs. To be more specific, we currently contract to an outside provider to supplement the district's mandated speech and language services. For a full-time SLP, or speech language pathologist, a contracted provider costs the district $150,000 per year, $157,000 per year. Hiring our own would cost approximately half that amount. I'll turn the next couple slides over to Christian.
Good morning, everyone. As highlighted previously, the largest driver of this year's budget is the increase to our medical and dental insurance line. This increase of $4.5 million is required to meet the actuarial projected claims and begin to rebuild the Board of Education's, at this point, almost completely depleted medical and dental reserve account. In this next slide, we provided this visual representation of the increasing costs of claims over the last 4 years, as well as the significant depletion of our medical and dental reserve account. You will note that in the 2024-2025 school year, that this was the year that a reduction following the first referendum prior to that year, a reduction to the Board of Education budget of $950,000 was made. This, coupled with significantly higher than projected claims, resulted in approximately $2.2 million of the reserve being utilized that particular year. And that's your second column you'll note. So you'll see the gap, the 9.7 and that gap. And as you can see, that depletion of the reserve. Additionally, in the current year, the reserves are again being heavily relied on, with a current projection of just under $9,000 being left in our medical and dental reserve account by year's end. Again, this is a projection. In this year's budget, there's also an increase of $277,400 for our workmen's compensation. This is driven by an increase in claims, which has also impacted our self-funded reserve. Rebuilding this fund has been a direct recommendation from the town and the Board of Finance. Our annual expenses related to this account over the last 3 years are $419,925 in annual claims. We would like to point out that this budget, in regards to the excess cost grant, we have currently estimated, it does net this out, of our tuition costs of just over a little bit, $1 million. As we've spoken about previously, this is an estimate. The state has started to come back and further funding this, but is always a volatile determination that we have to be prepared for.
Taking all of this into account, the Board of Education approved a $7,630,414 increase, which equates to 11.14%. The next two slides will demonstrate a breakdown of this increase, and you will see the far majority of it resides in medical and dental insurance and contractual salary increases.
In both of these slides, which are also included in the budget book that was provided to the Board of Finance, is a waterfall of the costs that show exactly how the 11.14% is distributed across our major drivers. Both this slide, which actually shows the dollar amount, and the following slide, which shows the percentage amount. And once again, you can see the single largest impacting factor is the increase in necessary medical and dental insurance as projected by Brown & Brown. If you were to actually remove this, hypothetically, as well as contractually obligated salaries, the total increase is 1.47% if you were to remove those two drivers, or roughly $774,523. Finally, we turn to our capital projects. It is important to note that the following items are not funded within the Board of Education's operating budget, but are critical infrastructure needs. The time I'll hold by not going through one by one, but I will state that our high priority capital needs total in just over $1 million. This includes major maintenance, like the high school HVAC chiller replacement at $43,000, or the gym replacement floor estimated at $650,000, as well as essential security modifications and technology infrastructure across all schools. These investments are vital to keeping our buildings safe and functional for our students.
This concludes our presentation this morning. Thank you for your time.
I gotta make a statement here first. This is a really budget challenging year for many reasons, but one of the reasons is we as a Board of Finance has not seen financials from the Board of Ed in a very long time. So we're kind of flying in the dark as to what's going on and how your actuals are. So I'm just wondering why we haven't received our monthly financials. And my other question is your board seeing the financials? Because we're kind of in the dark right now as to what your position is.
So the last financial reports you would have received would have been from our December Board of Education meeting. That's the last formal meeting that we've held. The Board of Education, we've not had a formal meeting in January to
No.
approve finances.
Yeah.
We would have gotten that at our January meeting, and
Right, so excuse me,
we
so-
didn't get that. So
sorry,
we
then
haven't
the-
received anything since the end of November.
Correct. That is correct.
So why is that? Because honestly, to look at this and I have no frame of reference, and I'm gonna speak for myself. Other members can check in. I don't know where you are right now. I don't know what your struggles are right now for an actual basis. So it's hard for me to reconcile what you need, but I don't know what's happening and what you are doing currently. So I would ask that we get those reports monthly. We always got them at our Board of Finance meetings. And ahead of time, if we had questions, we could reach out, but we're kind of in the dark. And
We understand that, but as a practice, we share our financial reports with the Board of Education prior to sharing them with the Board of Finance. We have not done that because the board has held workshops for the past month.
okay, but this is going months ago too. It's not just recent. It's been months. We haven't really seen them. So my ask is that this board hasn't seen the actuals, and they can all attest to, we always talk about it on our meetings. We haven't seen reports. So we need to get those monthly in time for our Board of Finance meeting, so we could look at them, and if we have questions, we need to go back to you guys, but we're not seeing them, so that's my statement. It's hard for me to know what your struggles are now, what's overfunding because of X, Y, Z. I have no visibility. We have no visibility to see that. So all I would ask is that you could get those reports to finance so we could get them for our meetings.
I think we did get some for November.
Yeah, but
We got at the end of November.
yeah, it's been kind of inconsistent. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure it's consistent.
Right.
Okay, other members want to?
Yeah, my challenge has been comparing what was budgeted for 2025 to 2026 with the numbers that you presented in your package. One in particular, I thought the budgeted number for salaries was 40,641,000. Here I'm looking at 40,842. I don't know what. You know, granted, it's only a couple $100,000 difference, but that's what I'm trying to compare apples to apples.
Are you, just clarifying question, sir?
Yeah.
Are you looking at both salaries and non-salary payroll as a combination?
Just salaries.
Okay, so we would also.
Yeah,
get- so we-
the non-salary payroll number I had was 1,117,000 opposed to 901. Unless I don't have a good budget numbers.
You're likely looking at revised versus original?
I thought I was looking at the approved.
So what happens is there's always an approved budget that gets approved, and then historically, what's been provided to both the Board of Ed and Board of Finance is a revised budget, because budget transfers occur, which are approved by the Board of Education every other month.
Okay.
And so what happens is what's been historically provided is a revised budget when we work on the budget for the new year.
Okay.
So it's the revised budget of so in total, it's still the approved budget, the line items have changed. So there
Okay.
could have been $200,000 for salaries and from a different line item, or it could have been.
Okay.
That's how the contingency fund.
Do we receive, Rich, do we receive that? Do we ever get those numbers?
So the monthly financials, I'm sorry, Raj.
Oh,
The monthly financial, yeah.
Financials have the revised budget. in it.
Okay.
I think what Bob is looking at, if I'm looking at the same thing right now, the numbers you use for comparison between the 2 years, you've adjusted to whatever shifts you may have made during the process. So it doesn't give them something that's compare apples to apples. They're looking at apples and oranges.
By line item.
So they need to kind of,
But historically, that's what's been provided.
No, but we have, in the past years, we have original budget compared to original proposed budget.
Yeah,
That's what has been actually proposed, yes.
so, yeah, if there's a way of,
Even last year.
it looks like one of the things that was, maybe, it looks like their contingency 179, maybe you spread it out someplace else.
Spread out through the salary.
So if you can, that way it gives them the comparison they can make, so looking at apples and apples, I think that's what Bob's getting at. If it's an easy fix,
That's just running a different report.
okay,
Okay.
all right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, no, I see what you're saying now, too. If they're looking at percentage changes, they're having a problem correlating it because the numbers aren't the same. Or the bucket's not the same.
As previous year, right.
They need a baseline to start. And if it's just a matter of generating another report, if you can send it, we'll send it to members on Monday.
Okay, I have another question. This is just for information. Christian, you've been here for quite a while. Howard was here before, and now there's two of you. So I'm just trying to understand, you always had one person, what's the need for two, and like, what you guys really do?
So we've never just had one person. When Howard was here originally, Howard was the director of finance, transportation, operations, food services, and oversaw a lot of facilities as well. When Howard left, we reorganized central office to have a chief operating officer that had a educational lens on that side. We always had a finance person assisting Howard.
Okay.
Similar to the Rich and Ingrid model, similar to many districts around. The chief operating officer handles operations. Howard's position as finance manager is strictly finance.
And you're basically operations. There's finance, and then there's other issues that you're dealing with. Is that what you're saying? So that's why there's two. Okay, so that was not clear to me in the past. So I appreciate that.
Of course,
And Howard's position is finance director.
manager. He does not evaluate anyone.
Okay, because when I looked him up, he was director of finance and operations and human services here from 2020 to 23. And then he went to Oxford, and then he came back here in July of this year. And what I have seen is that his title is finance director.
He's finance manager. He was replacing that.
And how is he being paid currently? Out of what bucket? Because it's not in the budget.
So it's not a clerical, right?
It's currently under the clerical line.
Clerical.
We want to get into, I don't know if anybody has any questions, but there was an email talking about Brown and Brown. Do you want to ask her a question?
Yes. Thanks everyone for showing up today. You all got your coffee. We sent some, Chairman Doheny is not here today. And he sent over a lot of the same questions that we all have. And I want to thank you very much for responding in some way to those questions. That was, it was helpful, it was a good start. But before we get into the medical, could I just ask the overall question here of, that I don't think was answered, I don't know if you answered it in any of the emails, is that you had 4 different scenarios in terms of budgets with different levels of increase. And of the 4, you chose the 11.4. 4 options. Yeah, okay. 5.99, 6.71, 9.77, and 11.14. So why'd you select the 11.14 and what is the difference between that and, say, one of the other midpoints, say the 6.71? Was there a 6.71 that you thought somehow, in some situation, you could tolerate? Yeah.
The purpose of the Board of Education is to oversee the public school system and determine what means are necessary to run it effectively. We were presented with options ranging from, the mid 5% to the mid 11% range. We spent several nights discussing these options. Part of the mid 5% to 6% range included us not honoring contractual obligations to our teachers, which was an absolute non-starter for the Board of Education. Some of the other options included not requesting the additional positions that you see in your budget, which you determined were a need and not a want for our special education. So when all comes down to it, we considered all of the options and decided that the purpose of the Board of Education is to request what is needed to run a school district. And in our estimation, the 11.14% is needed to run the school district.
Okay. So, again, just going to the, you considered the 4 scenarios, so I don't know why you considered things that were unrealistic or whatever. But,
Because we were gonna get questions. So this, this is not our first rodeo. We've done this dance for several years, Mr. Hallahan. And I'd also just like to bring up really quickly, one other thing that did definitely color the decision was an analysis that my son performed. My 7th grader performed a 10-year inflationary analysis and looked at real dollar spending. So inflationary analysis based on the consumer price index tells us how much buying power we have as a Board of Education. If you look over the past 10 years, the North Haven Board of Education has 1.4% fewer real dollars than we did 10 years ago. We have $972,000 less according to the Consumer Price Index. The town side of the budget has seen a 13.59% increase in real dollars. I'm certainly not saying that the town side of the budget is not required.
over 10 years?
Over 10 years, in real dollars. I'm certainly not saying that the town side of the budget is not well managed. But what I am saying is that the Board of Education has been doing more with less for several years. And we are not overspending. Inflationary, we are under our real dollars that we were at 10 years ago.
Okay.
Can we address it?
All right, we may have more follow-up questions on the other.
We may have, I can't see Amanda. Ingrid can chime in as well, but dollar for dollar, year for year, the Board of Ed spends more dollars than the town does. You agree to that?
So, not in top point, we get 49.7% of the total budget.
No,
You can look at it two different ways, right? You can look at it like,
Well, let me hit you with this. One of the big driving factors, which is over 10 million on the town side budget, is debt service.
I'm aware.
Board of Ed is 2/3 of our debt. So if you back out, I can give you numbers.
I actually have debt service from all the districts in our dirt here too. We are.
I'm just talking about debt service compared to the town.
Yeah.
Those two lines are basically pretty consistent. And there is a significant higher dollar amount Board of Ed cost to the town compared to town. Okay, so I'm losing where you were going then. Dollar for dollar, the Board of Ed spends more than the town side does.
So dollar for dollar, true, right?
Okay,
But expecting a 50-50 equation is out of line with what is standard. Within our district reference group, most districts spend about 58 to 65% of their total dollars on the Board of Education. We are in the bottom 4 of our district reference group for that.
Yes.
We'll let you
Could you
go, we
check
don't want
that
to take over your
information?
meeting,
I'll
but,
check.
I'll share with you some numbers if I can get our hands on them, but the dollars that is much, it's not a 50-50 split. When you,
It's not supposed to be.
no, well,
Most
I
people
thought
have
you're
a 60-40
implying, yeah, we probably are closer to 60-40 split. When you adjust that.
I will gladly perform that. I think I actually.
I have it, I can
think
give it
have
to you when
that,
this meeting's over.
But it's not, I don't think,
And consumer price index, you talk about buying goods, Board of Ed, 90% of
price
this is
index
labor.
is the standard for inflationary calculations.
They're not buying product, town
Sure
buys
they are, they buy
product,
toilet paper just like everybody else.
but the majority of their cost is labor.
And consumer price index impacts labor costs, like that's the main driver for
They're
labor
the same.
inflationary.
The two of us are the same with the labor costs. I'll share some numbers after the meeting, I don't want to take over the meeting.
Okay.
I'll share something with you, and I think you might get a different perspective.
Question. I know you do.
Okay.
My biggest question to you guys
Bless
is
you.
how are we supposed to sell this to the town of North Haven? Is that why you gave us the 11% increase to start with? Because you know it's never gonna pass at a referendum?
We gave, the board approved the 11.14% because that's what's needed to run the district.
I understand that.
When, earlier in the presentation, Mr. Strickland stated that we're, without salaries and without insurance, we're asking for a 1.4% increase. That's extremely minimal. We've shaved off everything we could in order to run this, keep this district operating. And Mr. Holland, back to your question regarding the scenarios, our responsibility to the Board of Education is to provide them context. Walking in with 11.14% without context is not fair to the Board of Education, and it's not fair to the Board of Finance as well. So to show the different options of what could possibly be cut, whether it's a salary freeze or, reducing our staff, that's important to show the Board of Education, important to show all of you that we have no other options to go with here. So that's why the board approved the 11.14% in order to maintain what we have. This is not a want budget. This is solely a need budget.
You had mentioned what other towns, even towns in our DIRG do, and in most other towns, you have a superintendent's budget, and then you have a slightly reduced Board of Education budget. And what I noticed in going through every single line in this budget is that there's 100% equality between the superintendent's request and the Board of Education.
I'm very
budget.
proud of Board of Education. They're supporting our district like that.
So there were no discussions among the Board of Ed in which there were anyone
There
that
were
said,
in-depth discussions with the Board of Education.
in
We
which they
actually-
disagreed with you.
On some things, sure.
Okay. That-
The board asked us after the first meeting to go back and sit with every department and every school principal to see what could be done. And we sat for hours with each of them combined. And maybe 1/4% we were able to shave off, maybe. And that's leaving instructional supplies as is in every building. That's not realistic. The cost of goods are rising. We cannot run a school district solely on instructional supplies that we paid for last year, the same cost. We're automatically getting less. So yeah, we went in depth with the Board of Education. So I'm sorry if that was not clear.
So Patrick, or let me say to the audience here that, Patrick, myself, Christian, Ron Bathrick, Rich Monaco, we have a lot of meetings and a lot of discussions. It's really a collaborative relationship. But recently I spoke with Patrick and Ron and Rich and Christian. The union leadership has come to me requesting a meeting. And the union leadership has asked to see me regarding moving to the state insurance plan. And I would never have a meeting like that without getting it cleared through the administration, the superintendent, and the Board of Education. So I'm scheduled to call Krista Kaplan, who's, we have a great relationship with even Anthony and Krista. But until you tell me that we should meet, I haven't made that commitment. But the question is, what is the interpretation from the union leadership that is suggesting that there's significant cost savings in moving to a state plan versus our plan? And just before you answer the question, if that ever happened, we would have an increase on the town side, because the whole coalition of insurance that we have through ACES is based on aggregate purchasing power, reducing administrative costs because of the volume of groups that we have in it. So, but the first question is, what is the interpretation that would suggest that Board of Ed should go to a state plan?
So we've actually been in active dialogue looking at the proposal in conversations with Mr. Monaco for what actual cost savings. It was proposed to us as well, Mr. Frieda. We've been analyzing this. We haven't had an active dialogue with union leadership yet in terms of our interpretation. We've actually reached out to our actuaries as well. It's a multitude of things that need to be considered. For example, you can develop a proposal on your active membership, but when you switch to a state plan, you have to really start to consider how many individuals in our various bargaining units might then choose to switch when that occurs, which could actually offset any actualized savings. You also have to consider, I'm sure, as you know, retirees and how that plays out into the equation. And so we're still assessing that. And so not having had that dialogue previously, with having received that leadership, we are looking into that. As you know, that was brought forward by union leadership at that time, but it would certainly have to be brought forward to the Board of Education first before any determination could be made.
You know, I'm always open to having these discussions, but this is why I brought this up, because I need to be asked by the union, the Board of Ed, to do such. But having been involved with insurance for many, many years, the other thing that happens is, and North Haven was a good example on the town side before I took office, there was a switch in the insurance, moving from Anthem to Connecticut, and it was a disaster, because in that situation back in 2000, let's say it was 7, the whole plan design for the union changes, and that's my concern and hesitation by even agreeing to the meeting. This is why I was asking for this group, and in particular, you know, again, we have a great relationship here, to be authorized to do that, so to speak. So any change in moving to the state plan could adversely affect the design, the benefits, the networks, the doctors, before any change like that could ever be made. But the issue is, the reason I'm bringing it up, when we look at the numbers, we see the tremendous increase based on claims history that we have. And those are accurate numbers as supplied by Brown & Brown. I think this coming year is 12.3 million. So, and the other thing is important for the public watching, is that we cannot consistently ignore the actuarial analysis in terms of what the claims history are, or claims history is. So that's number one. Number two, I want to bring up special ed if I could. Okay, so when we look at the 70% reimbursement, and then I want to get into something else regarding energy costs, because Patrick and I had this discussion. When we look at special ed, I've been invited to go to Hartford on Friday, February 5th. And with the Democratic leadership, by the way, in a bipartisan fashion, Democratic leadership at the state level. So I've been invited as one of 7 other mayors across the state to address a lot of issues. And one of the issues will be special ed. So when we look at the numbers here, I think there's an 18,000 difference between what we should be getting and what we're not getting, let's say. I think it's 18,000. So if we were able to move the needle from 70% to 85%, what would that mean in terms of incremental dollars back to the Board of Ed? Or maybe we don't need to answer this now. Maybe if you can, before Friday, give me what it would be at 75%, 80%, 85% to see what the incremental revenue would be on the reimbursement for special ed versus the 70% that we already have. That would be helpful. And lastly, just so everyone knows that when we look at these, we can put that slide back up on energy, but the 5-year capital plan. So, I had a conversation with Patrick the other day, and what I'd like to do, and I think we can do it, I have a lot of contacts, as you know, one of which is regarding performance contracts that can satisfy some of these energy efficient requests in the capital by financing it over a 17-year period, taking it out of the capital budget and financing it between the difference between what the new energy cost would be if we were to implement all these things versus what the current energy cost is. So the beauty of this is we're one of the few municipalities that's ever done this. And I spoke to a statewide mayor's meeting, and three-quarters of my colleagues didn't even know this existed. So if we can identify the real needs here, I'm going to set up a meeting with Patrick, Christian, Ron, you're welcome to come in, Rich Monaco. We might be able to finance a lot of this and taking it out of the capital requests moving forward.
Mike, didn't we do this years ago?
We did about 13 years ago with Johnson Control.
Johnson Control, exactly.
This is a revitalization of that. I've got these other contacts that are willing to help us with this. What I'd love to do, and I don't know, it may be a stretch, the $650,000 on the replacement for gym floor, can there be any energy efficiency savings through a new gym floor? Because that's a big number right there. Maybe think about that for me too. Okay.
I do think it's important to recognize though that with that support, which would be wonderful, these numbers are not a part of the budget that you're looking at.
No, I know that. I know that.
So even by doing all of those additional fundings that you're talking about, which again would be great, it doesn't help that bottom line that we're presenting today. It helps overall and over time for sure, but it does not affect that 11%.
No, I understand that, Randy. What I'm trying to do is plan for the future.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. Thank
Our
you.
big thing right now is the health insurance. You know, that's the 12.3 million. So that's why I asked the question about this state plan and what is the actual number that would be associated with the state plan that the union leadership thinks it may be versus what we're faced with here at 12.3 million.
Thank you for the push for the support in special education.
Yeah.
Those prices are extremely high as well. We want to do what's best for the kids.
So do we want to go and talk about the Brown and Brown situation, the email?
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Holliday, take it away.
Yeah, it is unfortunate the hole that we find ourselves in here with the insurance program. You know, we always want it to be funded adequately so that we don't fall behind. That's the whole purpose of reserves too, is also to cover us in certain situations. But this problem started, I think, a little ways back, and I've been raising a red flag about it for quite a little while here. Within the latest audit that we received from our friends there at Clifton, Lawson, and Allen, in the last fiscal year, the last full fiscal year, 24-25, it states in their report that for the Education, Dental, and Medical Fund, expenses exceeded revenues by $2,819,088. Do you believe that's an accurate figure?
Yep, right there. Yeah, for 24-25, Mr.
For
Holland.
24-25?
Yep, if you look at that, that's actually when I pointed that out in the presentation. You'll notice the gap there that you see. It's the second column. We can tilt that. So you are correct. We had to rely on the reserves for approximately $2.2 million that year. That was a combination of two factors. Going back from a historical context point, you recall from that year, feeding into that year, we had to go to a second referendum, so the Board of Education was requested to make a $950,000 reduction. While determinations in reduction to a budget are always the final determination of the board, there was heavy recommendation that we should look at the time, If you look at the prior year, the reserves were healthily funded at 3.2 million. So that the general idea that was communicated to the board is we could take a cut in what we were asking for our medical and dental and absorb that cut based upon projections for that year. Unfortunately, the projections did not come to par. We saw a substantial increase in medical and dental claims that year, coupled with the fact that that $950,000 was effectively coming out of the reserve as well. So the difference you see there and why the reserves were so significantly depleted was a combination of those two factors.
Right, but you still completed that year with a surplus, correct? $267,000.
Can you repeat that again? It's Brett.
24-25 ended with a Board of Ed surplus.
Unutilized funds, yes.
Unutilized.
Unutilized funds.
Right, that's separate from the reserves.
Yeah,
I totally
separate,
understand.
yeah.
I totally understand.
Yes, that is correct.
You could have chosen to deplete that line item and use less of the reserve funds if you wanted. Is that correct? When you ended up that fiscal year with something in the bank account, something on that line item, $260,000 or whatever, you because of the expenses associated with that line, you actually could have expended that entire line rather than using reserves to satisfy whatever bills, whatever costs remain in 24-25.
So as the year 24-25 progressed, we actually did freeze the budget, as we were very transparent on, due to a multitude of factors, predominantly a high level of unexpected special education costs, the public benefit fees that we all were hit with in electricity. And so as we projected out the year, we did withhold that final payment in an effort not to come to the town for a separate appropriation at that time. That excess unutilized funds currently does sit in our non-lapsing fund. It will be up to the Board of Education to make a final determination where that goes, but there's considerable dialogue right now going on that would in fact go right back towards the medical and dental reserve.
Yeah.
Which was the recommendation of this Board of Finance some time ago, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, we recommended it go to workman's comp.
Oh, that's right. I'm terribly sorry. You're correct.
okay.
We had recommended
All right.
workman's comp, and then the board actually recommended splitting it, the Board of Education.
Yeah, it's your reserve amounts up there for 23-24. That's at the end of the year, 3.2 million down to 986,000. So that, to me, that seems to indicate really a change of about 2.3 million, as opposed to the 2.9 that is listed in the CLT audit. But nevertheless, I was saying during that time that my numbers were coming in saying that it was a $2 million loss or expense in excess of revenues for the dental and medical, and that's certainly quite a miss there on that. So the problem that got compounded is that I don't know what information or what advice you were getting from Brown and Brown, but in the budget that followed, in the current year's budget, you asked for a 0% increase in that line item. 0. Even though it was almost $3 million in the red for the 24-25 year. Was the advice you're getting either correct, or were you ignoring it, or what? How did this happen now? And because of that, how much in the red? How do you expect that line item to be at the end of this year?
So in addressing that question, and I may have some of the Board of Education jump into my answer here, but going back 1 year, as Superintendent Stirk spoke to earlier, when he presented his budget to the Board of Education last year at this time, the actuarial amount was included in that particular presentation. The Board of Education made some incredibly difficult decisions last year in terms of trying to reduce the total ask in order to get a budget approved, quite frankly. And so at that time, the Board of Education, and this was shared during our presentation last year, made a determination at that time that they would continue to rely on the reserves to address the difference in funding that would come about this year. This year, we are doing our best in looking at any actualized savings. We have frozen the budget again this year in an effort to make sure that we pay all of our claims in the current fiscal year. But as mentioned, that will likely deplete our reserves down to just under $9,000.
That would be remarkable if you could do that. Again, I don't know if it was just a bad claim year that you had in 24, 25, or whether that's a
very
trend
bad.
that's going to continue in the current year.
It was very bad. 24, 25 was not, the projections versus what actually occurred were quite off.
Yeah. On average, how much do employees contribute to the health insurance? Is there a certain percentage?
22 to 25
Yeah.
for Board of Ed.
20,
Between 22 and 25%. I shouldn't jump in, I'm sorry.
of the total cost? Yeah. And that gets taken out of each paycheck that they receive, right? So is that why there's no, you've given us charts before, or numbers before that show no employee contributions during the summer. So there's no, if they get paid for 10 months or whatever, there's no money coming in July and August. Is that right?
Benefits are taken out of 20 of their pays. So if an employee elects to utilize payments over 26, those payments, particular summer pays, as you alluded to, deductions are not taken out of them for those benefits.
Yeah. So your operating account acts as your reserve fund. That is, the amount of reserves that you declare is whatever is unspent in your operating account for insurance. In that line item, well, not a line item, in whatever insurance fund you run.
So in the operating account, so each year we place in whatever the proposed amount is, and we send a check over to the town monthly, because that reserve account sits on the town book. So we're feeding that reserve account, and then all of the claims come out of it.
Yeah. Okay. So So the reserve account is your operating account. This is what you spend money on claims for. You don't have a separate reserve account where sometimes you'll move money into and out of an operating account. So you don't run two accounts. You run a single account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's two bank accounts.
We have to cut a check out of our operating account, send it to the town, who then deposits it into, on their books, the bank account for the reserve account. It's two separate bank accounts, has nothing to do with our operating account. Our operating account has an expense, right? So there's two sides of this equation. There's the reserve account that sits on the town's books, and then there's the operating account over here with our expenses. We put in a line item in that expense, we cut the check off of that line item, check is made out to the treasurer, town of North Haven. It is then deposited into their book, into their bank account on their books. It has nothing to do with our operating account other than what we funded, the line we funded from. Same works for workers' compensation monthly.
I may have some questions about that in the future, but in one of the reports that you give us, it seems to be a single number of whatever the balance is in unpaid expenses versus revenue. So, but again, I'll. The one I had problems with.
692, 693. Fund 692, 693, which are funds out of town account.
Yeah. It was.
Just for historical purposes, I started that report back in 2021, simply because the data that was being given from the town was inaccurate, and I had to reconcile the account every month to make sure that what was being reported was correct.
Okay. All right. Just a note on some of the charts that you sent us in response to Mr. Dohany's questions here. You sent us this budget or budget projection or something. It just to clarify, I think that for the one that says budget fiscal year 26, 27, I think the top section was not fully labeled, that the top section had to do with the current fiscal year, 25, 26.
You were accurate. We clarified that in our responses yesterday
Right.
and sent the backup document.
Yeah. Okay. And the same thing, of course, went with the page that, for the previous year, or the current fiscal year, 25, 26, that the top section had to do with 24, 25. It's the same
Yeah.
chart, the same information, but for a different fiscal.
Correct.
Okay. And by the way, the workman's comp page, the workman's comp numbers that you gave us, for some reason, it's labeled at the top medical and dental, and it's labeled a second time, on another line, medical and dental.
So we were talking, so that's literally the spreadsheet I just talked to you that I developed in 2021. The top section, I got the medical, because we're not talking about the medical. We didn't change the titles. So it's just the workers' comp, and then
Okay.
that's workers' comp.
All right. Okay. All right. You know where the delete key is, right? You can make those changes.
We do. Thank you.
Yeah, so for the one that says 26, 27, the numbers at the bottom, now, that has to do, the whole lower section is just, is it actual expenses? Because it says projected through 10/31/25. Is this whole lower section just what historically has occurred in the last 12 months?
No, so the bottom section is the projection for 2027 unit claims through 10/31/2025. That's how the actuaries go about it. They take a period of time when the claims are coming in, and they project those out for the future year. That's why the 10/31 is on there. You see in other versions of this, you see different dates. That's the date the claims are utilized by the actuaries to then project what they're talking about. So that bottom section is all of what is being projected for the full year, starting July 1st, 2026, going to June 30th, 2027.
Okay, information from Brown and Brown. Yeah, now you have a finance committee that you report to, right? Yeah. And we have been asking for some more specific figures on what the monthly changes are to your reserve account or your operating account or whatever it is, based on contributions, based on claims paid and everything else. So we're trying really to get it, because when an account continuously runs millions of dollars or a high percentage in the red, and we get the monthly reports, and we're supposed to look at them, and we comment on them. What does your finance committee say when this medical and dental is running in such a negative fashion?
I'm chair of our finance committee. I watch all the Board of Finance meetings and I address your questions in the public Board of Ed meeting sessions. You are welcome to come to Board of Ed meetings anytime. All of our finance subcommittee meetings are also public, Mr. Hallahan. I also know you happen to have my phone number, which anyone is welcome to reach out to me on. As far as running in the red from a reserves perspective, it makes us all deeply uncomfortable. My dear friend Joe Salamini, who couldn't be here today, has been banging the drum on increasing our reserves for years. But we were in a position where it was either lean heavily on reserves to do what we thought was the best thing possible, or potentially face more strict cuts. So we do this calculus every month. We look at this every month, except for January, when we have workshops. You are more than welcome to come to Board of Education meetings and ask these questions to us. We will get you the answer. Absolutely.
Yeah, we do like data, and some of the data is more explanatory than others. But we've been told by Mr. Monaco that this board can receive at least as much as what the Finance Committee gets on a monthly basis, on the Board of
Yeah.
Ed Finance Committee.
What I said, any
So my question to you is, what information is provided to you and your committee then, on a monthly basis?
When I ask for committee information, Howard, Christian, Patrick are happy to oblige. I never feel like.
Are there, I mean, within the regular, do you get regular monthly
I get regular
spreadsheets?
reports that you also, my understanding is that you also receive them. We get regular reports, but I also will email the team fairly regularly with additional questions so that they can come prepared to answer in public session. And I find that I get answers when I ask for them. You're welcome to send me questions as well if you'd like, and I'm happy to.
No, but
to
it
get
is,
them answered in public session.
then all you receive is the 692 report?
We get that regularly, yes.
Do you get more than this?
Yes, we get more than that.
Okay, well, just as an example, why don't you just send us what you've received in the last meeting? And we can look it over.
Well, that's true, but like, whatever happens in the finance subcommittee is in public session as well. I don't think anybody's trying to hide anything. If you have a specific question, I'm happy to get you a specific answer. Above and beyond formatting issues. If you have issues with formatting, I'm more than happy to help you interpret the formatting.
Yeah.
I don't-
All right, just so you know, I do not like this 692 report. It's an awful report.
Let's,
Okay.
talk to me about that.
There's blank lines and there's entry numbers that don't correspond sometimes to the monthly budgets that we get.
I'm not struggling with the report, but if you are, we are happy to make adjustments.
Okay.
So that you can interpret
I
it
think
appropriately.
we need to sidebar. We need to talk with you about the report, and we don't need to keep going.
All right,
Sorry.
how about if I can just interject here, because I want to try to bring this back to a collaborative discussion between the two boards and the people that are here. Because what I'm about to tell you is what we're all faced with together in this meeting and even those watching on TV. So right now, with all the requests on both the town and Board of Ed side, including the insurance numbers, we're at a 3.5 mil tax increase. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I don't think anyone knows, and that's this. Rich and I just talked about this late yesterday. So the grand list numbers came in, and it's not a bad grand list increase. It's probably going to be reported to the state about 2.7%. This is after, which is almost remarkable. This is after the offsets. So just so everyone knows, the way this works is that coming off a 39.5% reval this past year, which created that tax increase, because of that, for every city and town that went through reval, there's appeals, both from residents and from businesses. So the net for us after the appeals is about 2.7%. And that yields approximately $3.3 million in incremental revenue for the town, which in a normal year without these types of non-discretionary increases, it's really a remarkable year. But when we look at 14 million and then we subtract 3.3 million approximately, we're still at a 2.8%
2.8 mil.
mill rate. 2.8 mill rate.
Increase.
Now, also, and I'm not sure if it came from this room, and this is just a question. There could be a request coming in to me to split the budget on the town side and the board side. We've never done that. I'm not even sure if we can. I'm not even sure if the charter allows it, but I understand it's bubbling up somewhere. So the question is, even after the incremental grand list growth, can we collectively, this isn't Board of Ed versus Board of Finance, can we collectively sell a 2.8 mill rate increase? It's a rhetorical question right now, but I'll give you my opinion. After the last couple of years, I don't think we can sell it. So what do we do? Even if the town stripped $3 million worth of capital out, we're still over a 2 mil increase. And by stripping the 2 million or $3 million roughly worth of capital, then those are sanitation trucks, you know, there's fire trucks that we have to pay for. How do we get around a 2.8 mil increase? I'm not asking for an answer. It's something we have to consider here. I don't think we can get it done. I'm talking collectively here. So we talk about what, you know, this is why I'm trying to bring it back as a whole here, okay? Rather than go back and forth on this, because we're all here in this room faced with this issue that I just presented. And I'm not sure what the answer is, how we can do it. We all have to think about it collectively, okay? That's where we're at.
Any other comments from the members?
Yeah, I have some sort of specific questions because, again, as was mentioned before, what each of us was faced with doing was looking at the 2027 request, comparing that not just to the current 2026 budget, but also with the actuals from 24-25. And then also comparing where we are to date for that given line item in the current fiscal year, which is 25-26. So we're at a little bit of a disadvantage because we're almost in February and the numbers that we have are through the end of November. But I would like to ask just the very first line item, which is salary contingency. So last year we were told this was in the budget at $275,000. And I noticed that it actually went to zero or was revised. The budget was revised for that line item back to zero, I think in November. And now you're requesting an additional $176,000 for salary contingency. I just wondered if you could provide some context for this.
Sure. This year's salary contingency line request actually increases. We're actually about to enter into negotiations with our custodial contract. So their wages pending the bargaining will increase. So we have an increase in there, as well as anticipated minimum wage increase, which will come 1 year from now for all of our part-time employees. This is also where the just over $12,000 for the coaching stipends is also housed.
And again, this line item was just created last year for the first time. So where did you pay for all of these things that you just mentioned previously?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
So this line item, salary contingency, didn't exist before the current fiscal year's budget. So I think I remember that this was created in order to accommodate the registered behavioral technicians that were being retrained this year, and that was a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. We were also at that time, again, in contract negotiations, so placing, we don't know exactly, you know, we're going to come to the bargaining table with anticipated increases, so that's where we place those.
Right.
Last year, we were still at that time, nurses contract, the RBT growth that we had also placed in there. I can go back and look because I don't have that book in front of me, but there are some other smaller pieces in there as well. But it is primarily designed to house the minimum wage increase that will trip January 1 next year, as well as the result of contract negotiations, which have not begun yet, groups that are scheduled to begin.
Right. So I guess my question is, prior to this year's budget, how did you account for those things that you've just described? Because on the town side of the budget, we just make a forecast for increases in salary. If we're renegotiating contracts, we have a personnel and policy department or line item that accounts for back pay for contractual increases. So I guess I'm still trying to understand exactly what was done prior to the creation of this line item.
I'm gonna give it a shot.
Sure.
So salary contingency was just an effort to be more accurate in our budgeting. Prior to that, we wouldn't necessarily account for that, the increases like we do now. Occasionally we'd pull from, you know, we'd hire teachers or employees at a lower rate from teachers that have retired and see some savings there, and that would go, and it wouldn't be as accurate. Now we have this contingency, which we can put in our negotiations or stipends or whatever to be more direct and accurate for us in our planning and for you to see where those increases might be. We weren't as accurate as prior years.
Right, because all we see, we don't see where it goes, we just see that is zero. So we don't see that it's gone from this line item to
Yeah, it's spread in different, yeah.
where it goes. Sort of to the point that I was saying before, that we don't really get a sense for that. And then, speaking of the registered behavioral technicians, I guess this is line item 112, S's and Sam. It looks like there's about a 410% increase from the current fiscal year to the 27 budget. I just wondered if you could provide some context, because again, if you add that the current year's budget is $75,000, and even if you add the entire amount of the salary contingency, it still doesn't get up to what you're asking for.
This coming year is where we actually shifted the 10 RVTs that were in the salary contingency last year. That is now where those individuals get paid out of.
Right, but I'm saying even if you added those two numbers together, the 75,000 from the current budget plus the entirety of the $275,000, you still wouldn't come up with this 381.
Right, but if I'm understanding your question accurately, Nancy, the entire salary contingency from last year it wasn't all RVTs. Is that
No,
what you're
I understand. So how do we go from 75 to 381?
10 RVTs at $38,000, 131 annual salary.
So 10 times 31 is
131.
Oh, sorry, 38,1, is that what you said?
38,131.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So that's not what we expected for the current fiscal year, right? There must have been some big jump in their salary from the current fiscal year to the next.
It's what we negotiated with the union. It's a position within the UPSU bargaining contract. So effectively what we did was we took paras that were already there. They were already getting paid X amount of dollars.
Yes.
And the salary contingency helped to cover the difference between those. That's how that's being funded this year.
Right. And then you backfilled those paras, or we
So-
no longer have those paras?
Right. The best way to describe it is an RBT. We kind of classify them as almost special forces paraeducators. They're higher trained. They've received a higher level of training, so they can do both a paraeducator assignment and the RBT. So we don't have to backfill. They've now expanded their skill set and can be assigned to students where the RBT services are identified within their IEP.
Right. So then the total salary is reduced then by what they were originally paid as paras, correct?
Not necessarily. We may add.
Then we're double paying.
No. We may have been hiring additional paraeducators.
That's my question. Right. Is
To
whether you're going to
support our
backfill. Right.
But it's not always a one-to-one
Not a
correlation.
one-to-one. Okay. Let's see, what other questions do I have? Let's see, on pages, I know that Chairman Donnie asked quite a bit about the transportation fees, but of course, they're broken out into individual line items. So I guess on page 3 of the budget, it's line items 510 G as in golf and 510 H as in hotel. It looks like these are some really substantial jumps in transportation for VOAG school and transportation for ECA Magnet of like 165% and 450%. Is there some big uptick in participation that you're expecting in both VOAG and ECA participation?
Yeah.
It's a bad budget allocation last year. This is a reallocation, the proper reallocation of the budget. So if you're looking year over year,
Yep.
right, the allocation last year is incorrect. In total is correct for the schools, but it was allocated incorrectly by line, so you're gonna get a false increase this year when you allocate it correctly.
That was the 197 that he was talking about in that email?
No.
No?
Well, no, this is, but it's, so VOAG is budgeted this year at 85 and you're requesting 225. And in 24-25, you spent about 78,000 on it.
Correct, and you can see regular transportation went down by 4%, so again, you're taking it line by line, but the allocation year over year was incorrect last year. So VOAG could have been buried in the regular transportation line where it should have been and it should have been fully in its own line. So when I went through and reallocated properly this year, you're gonna get these incorrect percentage increases and decreases that don't truly reflect what the cost of transportation is. It hasn't gone up. There is actually an extra plus in VOAG this year, so there is an increased cost there, which also complicates the calculation. All right?
So for that line item, the spending, at least through November, is about $13,000 for VOAG. Again, I don't have through up to date. And likewise for ECA Magnet, in 24-25, we spent a little bit under $5,000. The current year's budget is 15, and you're asking for a jump up to 85, which is a $450,000. And thus far this year, we've spent about 6,800. So there doesn't seem to be a connection between what's happening either in the completed last year
So if this
to
year-
date this
through
year.
November, 6,000, then yes, for the full year, it's gonna be about 15 if you just do prorate, that's a proration. You said 6,800 through
Yep.
November.
Yeah, and you're asking for 85.
So you go through the year out, for the full year, you're gonna have about 15,000, which then oversides what we're budgeting for next year.
So yes, it would be appropriate for this year's budget at 15. It would not be appropriate for next year's budget where you're asking for 85.
Because additionally, there's more in there than, there's also, again, there's something that was in a different line, in a sped line or something else that was not in there last year, that should be in there this year. I can get you the details.
Okay.
If that's a question you have,
That would be great.
I'll get you the details
I'm-
of the reallocation.
Maybe we can just maybe cut to the end for a second of it. It looks like the overall transportation is about 4.4%. Is that what your contract is driven at 4.4? So if you look at it in totals, the total is like a 4.4% increase, and that's contract driven?
Correct.
So
So
what
each
he's
one of
saying is his
these-
allocation's all screwed up. So throw his allocation, look at it in totals, it's a 4 points change increase, and that includes contract-driven increase plus one additional bus.
Correct.
And we also bill for in-kind service on the finance department. No, thought it was funny.
Which that is supported by our town budget.
Which is supported by the town side budget. It was Amanda, supported by the town side budget.
Let's see, under, I guess on one of the last four pages, under tuition, I'm assuming that this is out of district tuition payments?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, again, in 2025, we budgeted at 1.8, and we're actually in excess of that at 2.1. But in the current fiscal year budget, we're at 2.9. We've shaved that a bit down to 2.7, and year-to-date, at least through November, is at about $1 million. So is the expectation that it will be 2 of those or 3 of those? Two times the spending through November or 3 times?
I'm not processing that question.
So you're saying we spent $1 million in November?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, right now, I think it's gonna be it's gonna probably be right on target based on the projection we have, but it's a volatile item. Tuition is a very volatile item. It's one of the most volatile items in this budget. So it's, we project as best we can. We think that's what it's gonna be.
And are the tuition payments made,
Monthly.
monthly, quarterly?
Monthly.
Monthly.
Yeah, so that, when you see the actuals every month, you'll see which month will go
Yeah, and again, I never know whether that's a function of billing or how we pay it. And then it looks like you've added a new line item, 739C, which is called leases. And this is different from rentals, correct? Rentals for 4,400, 440D, 440 rentals. So that's different from leases. So could you give some context for what leases?
Sure. So in our relatively small fleet, Mr. Phil Diana has made us aware that we have a 1999 Chevy Silverado, which is used for plowing, etc. The floorboards have rotted out, and it's pretty much on its last legs.
Mike Matura might swap you a vehicle for that one.
That's what I'm saying. So.
It does. It has a stop sign welded in for the floor, so that's where you stop your feet.
It's another in-kind service, it sounds like, thank you.
So if Rich is willing to offer an in-kind vehicle.
So we're leasing a plow, is that what that is?
We're not leasing anything yet, it's a proposal to try and.
Proposal,
Yeah,
right.
proposal to replace that vehicle for our grounds and custodial crew. Get rid of that vehicle, quite frankly.
Right. Because the Board of Ed pays for
We would have to first approve the
plowing.
Board of Ed and then come to you on a lease. Well, yeah, we plow.
We plow all of your own parking lots, got it. Okay. And then one last question in terms of the line items. The second to last line item, 8100, organizational dues. Again, this has been bumped up from 127 to 134,000. In 24-25, we spent about 80,000 on this, and year to date, we've spent about 55 on this. Is that something that is front-end loaded? Is this going to be the organizational dues for the year? Is this something that is spread out over the course of the fiscal year?
Spread out over the course of the fiscal year.
Okay, because usually organizational dues I think of as being something you pay at the very beginning. So your expectation is there'll be more?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
There's 2 new assistant coaches for fencing and track. Are those new programs now, or
Just additional support for those.
it's just so there are other? So how many coaches in total? Is it just the 2, or is it more than that?
For those respective programs?
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
because it just said 2 new assistants. So my question is, did fencing and track always have programs, and now we have people managing those programs, or I'm just trying to understand.
So yes, we have had the indoor track program, the fencing program do currently exist, have previously existed. These would be assisting coaches to help out with.
Oh, so there's regular coaches and existing? That's what I'm just trying to figure out.
So
Because
there's
this says assistants.
Yeah, there's a head coach in place for each of those.
So there's one, okay, all right. And then I noticed software, and that's for all your programs, like we were just talking to the IT guy earlier. I'm assuming that's just an increase of what you already have because of licenses, correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right. Anybody
Yeah.
else have anything else?
Yep.
No. Yeah, one of the points that you made in your budgetary considerations was the whole idea about instructional supply lines that were reduced this year by 17.2%. But again, in 24-25, you only spent about 63% of what was allocated. So is the expectation that there's going to be an increased need for instructional supplies?
So what you're actually referencing, the 63%, Nancy?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we froze our operational budget as of January 1 last year. So that effectively, there are very few accounts that are discretionary at that point. So at that point, teachers really started of January 1 starting to say, if you can do without it, you have to start doing without it now. And so why those lines were not fully expended last year is a direct result of that budget freeze.
And then was it unfrozen once you got to the last 2 months of the year? Because we don't really have any of those financial records for May or June.
It was never unfrozen.
Okay.
A question, what are your projected legal fees for the suit against New Haven?
We do not have that available right now. We're at the beginning stages of so we couldn't even assess that right now.
So if you could negotiate a settlement, that would cut down costs.
Yeah, if I can jump in on this, so the mayor of New Haven called me, and we're trying to, and I've already talked to Patrick and the Board of Ed on this, so there's a willingness on our part to meet with their Board of Ed, and so I'm trying to orchestrate that with the mayor of New Haven, who's on board with me on that. I think he's talking to their Board of Ed, and it's unfortunate because our Board of Ed has done everything they can on this, sending messages, trying to reach out, unanswered calls, unanswered emails. So the two mayors are involved, and we're trying to reconcile this to see if we can bring this board and you with their board. So just bear with me on that one, okay?
I just wanted to also say that budgets are always really hard for everybody, so I appreciate the work that you guys have put in and what all the members of your board have done. And I wanted to congratulate you on the Blue Ribbon School for Green Acres, but I also wanted to congratulate you on the youth governor that we got from that school. That was pretty cool, guys.
Very proud of her.
That was really good.
Ingrid's daughter was there. She's in that class.
Mike has questions. He's waiting patiently.
Yeah, just to button up on some overall items here. In terms of the enrollment, the projections are, well, the median projection shows about a 50 student increase per year into the future. So that's about a 1.5% increase in enrollment per year. Okay. Yeah, because you gave us three projections, low, medium, and high. That's the median. Okay, and then now with the numbers of personnel you have, you did say that all the numbers will remain the same except the teacher with the proposal here for it includes 5 new employees on the teacher line. So you would go from, according to the information you gave us here, from 343.4, whatever the 0.4 is, to 348. Okay. But the paraprofessionals would remain the same at 109? Just getting confirmation. Yeah. Other support, 109.5. I guess the coaches are not part of other support? No?
They're stipended positions.
Yeah,
so it's
okay.
a little chunk of money.
All right, and administrators will stay at 17. All right. The teacher contract, we're in year what of how long of a contract?
This is year 1 of a 3-year contract.
1 of 3. And does that contract include steps at all every year?
That is correct.
Steps every year?
That is correct.
Just at 14.
Okay.
Step out at 14, Mr. Allen.
Okay, and with an underlying general increase or cost of living increase or whatever of what, 2.5, 3?
Yeah. We can get the exact figure for you, but it's right in around there.
Okay. Administrators, what year are they in of their contract?
I think we have to go into negotiations this end of this year, so they're in the second of 3 years.
Okay. All right, and the bus contract, we're in year 2 of, how long is that? 2 of 5.
So no, that stays with us. That's the food contract. This is year 1 of 5 on the transportation contract.
What?
This is year 1 of a
Year 1 of 5. Yeah, DACO year 1. We just ended with M&J. This is year 1.
The current year is year
Current year.
1.
Current year.
So the budget year is year 2.
Year 2. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you for that information.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fried unless you have a question.
In the past, you've provided information regarding actual enrollment. And I know you always have to do it at a certain point in time, usually it's October of the given year. But you also provide the figures for pre-K through 12 in district versus out of district versus the transition program. And I wondered if you could provide us with that
100%, yeah.
information. That would be great.
With the February 1st numbers, they'll be out.
All right. Everybody else good? All right, Mr. Frida.
I think the last thing I'd like to say is that when I'm in Hartford on Friday, I try to get a sharper handle in terms of what the state's subsidizations will be on all the different areas that we qualify for. We're not in a position like we mentioned in Haven earlier, where a significant part of their revenue is derived by state income. I think we're at 6 or 7%, that means 93% of what we do is on the taxpayers. So hopefully I'll get more information on what ECS may look like. But here's what we're up against, just so everyone knows, and it's the same thing. And I was at a statewide meeting on this during the week, that all of us at the local level, we have to have either council decisions or referendums in May. But many times we don't know what the money's going to be. We're just speculating. So we're trying to get a handle on what the projections will be and determine how those projections match up with what we think the flat line would be from the year before. So hopefully there's some uptick in whether it's ECS, pilot program, that can be applied towards this budget. Because just to summarize right now, it's $14 million aggregately on both sides, the town and the Board of Ed. That's a 3.5 mil tax increase. I just announced today that we have about 3.3 million in incremental revenue. That brings that down to about a 2.8 mil increase. So one of our goals at the local level is to try to see how much more we can get out of state funding here that helps mitigate whatever the tax increase would be. I'm going to give you one last point. If we strip everything out on both sides, I'm not saying we're doing that, we're down to a 0.33 mill rate increase. If we flatlined, and we know we can't do that because of the insurance numbers here, okay? We get down to a 0.33 mill rate increase. I think that's the number which we talked about roughly, okay? But that's eliminating everything. So this is the balance right here. This is why I said earlier, this is more of a collaborative discussion because we're all faced with the same thing. In the end, it's going to go to a referendum in May. That's kind of my summarizing points of view here, okay? Thank you.
Meeting adjourned. It is.
Actually, Diane, I had one more thing
Sure.
that I wanted
All right,
to point
okay.
out. I'm terribly sorry. I had forgotten that there was something that I wanted to review with you all, which kind of conflicts me, and I know a few other people too. The Board of Education Administrators page. So I took a look at the one that is on our town's website for the current fiscal year. And in my experience, the way you end one year is the way you should begin the next year, just like a basic accounting principle. So for fiscal year 25-26, all of those budgeted salaries for the 18 positions should be exactly the ones that are listed for 25-26 in the proposed budget book. And I see for 6 of the administrators that those numbers are different. And unfortunately, it's about a $30,000 difference. But what I'm also noticing is that it makes the basis of comparison different, right? So if the 25-26 number is larger, then the incremental increase for 26-27 doesn't seem quite as great. So I'm first of all trying to understand why the numbers aren't the same. But just let me give you an example. The superintendent, for 25-26 in the current fiscal year budget, your salary is listed as $200,899. But then in the budget book for this year, you're listing it as $209,949. And then you're proposing for next year, $216,247. So what looks like it's only a $6,000 increase is actually a $16,000 increase. So I'm not quite understanding why
Well,
just
for
for these
example,
6 positions.
My contract isn't negotiated until May, so there has to be a number that's put in play when we're setting this budget.
But your contract was actually set back in July of 2024, right? It was renegotiated for a three-year term,
Annually.
right?
But it's renegotiated annually.
Meaning it was set, let's say, in July of 2024.
It's renegotiated between the superintendent and the Board of Education annually. So each year, yes, a 3-year contract is put into play. But the Board of Education, in concert with the superintendent, typically they're May, sometimes June, that contract is renegotiated each year for another
It's always
3-year contract. It's a standard operating procedure, not just here in North Haven, but statewide.
Right. Well, I've just never seen in previous years that where we left off in the previous year, administrator salaries is different from where we start as a basis of comparison in the next budget book. So this is true for,
Nancy, I think Howard already agreed that he's gonna run a report, so you see oranges and oranges and not oranges and apples. So that maybe answer your question once you get that page from them.
well, this is not a revised budget issue. What Howard was talking about was we appropriate a certain amount for a budget line item, and the Board of Ed votes to revise that. This is administrator salaries and Ed Swinkowski used to tell me, when the budget is approved at referendum,
Yes.
it gets frozen. Nothing changes
Correct.
in the next cycle. You use that as your frozen basis of comparison.
Right.
Is that true?
Yes.
Correct.
So this whole list should be exactly the same
Yes.
as the way we left it.
Yes.
And then secondly, I also noticed in 25-26, which is the current fiscal year, we have 3 assistant principal positions at the high school. And in the proposed year, you only have 2, which is of course your prerogative, but you can't just cut that from this list. You have to include it and include that salary for the current fiscal year. And if you want to list it as 0 for the proposed year, that's entirely your prerogative, but you can't just cut it out. And then lastly, I'm still perplexed why Howard is not listed, his position is not listed in this list of
He's not an
administrators.
administrator.
Right, it's not administrator, it's clerical.
So, again, I looked up, his LinkedIn profile says finance director. So either you change your LinkedIn profile or he should be listed here.
I'm not in charge of his.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just surprised
You are
that he would
suggesting it,
go,
but he's clerical.
why
To
he
answer
would
the
go
question,
from
he's
being a
clerical.
finance director to now a finance
He's
manager.
clerical. He's clerical.
He's never been a finance director.
What do you mean he previously was the finance director,
I'm not talking previously.
right? And then he
And he
was
was actually the
finance
director of
in-
finance, transportation, operations, food service. He wasn't solely the finance director.
Director of Finance, Operations, and Human Services, and then Director of Finance.
This is semantics.
Oxford.
He's the finance
Yeah,
manager in clerical.
let's remember, he left. So when he
It's
was
a
here
brand
before.
No, I
yeah,
understand,
yeah.
I understand, and now he's come
Now
back.
he's come back.
So
it's now
I
clerical.
personally
Yeah,
think it should
now
be.
clerical.
And that's where they opt to do that.
Thank you.
I think it's interesting you're checking out his LinkedIn for a budget meeting.
Well,
But that's up to you.
I was trying
That's
to
up to you.
determine what his title is,
That's up
because
to you.
we never received any
We're not in charge of
notification.
his LinkedIn.
We received no
We're not in charge of
notification.
his LinkedIn.
I
All right,
understand that.
Good.
I'm gonna close the meeting. Thank you. We are adjourned at 10:30.
Thanks to all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.